wasn't carrying me home. Swing home, sweet Chariot, coming forth to carry me home.
Tradition has it that Genesis, the Song of Solomon, and the Book of Ezekiel were the three texts of the Tanakh that were surrounded by prohibition and taboo. Of the three, Ezekiel was considered the most dangerous. We're talking the prophet Ezekiel and the chariot of the Most High. We need not look further than the Old Testament to come across numerous instances where confrontation with the divine means abject terror. They say the power of the Israelites is a vengeful, wrathful deity who destroys entire cities. This is a power not of this world, a power from beyond. In the Western world, the relationship between humans and gods with the little g has been problematic from the beginning. We're talking about from the Genesis. Let's get it, oh Jacob. At some point, there was a breach of trust, a betrayal, or some kind of disconnect between the two types of existence. The Most High's command of not eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, while largely understood as a metaphor, the story describes an act of will on part of the human beings. Be fruitful and multiply, it says in Genesis, which was the command given to us by the Most High's power, not of the bruise or the Jews, but of the genes. Be fruitful and multiply. Procreating does nothing for the parents, it does everything for the genes. We are genetically disposed to having children, caring for them, and then dying off once we have done our job. So we're talking the command of the Most High to be fruitful and multiply. The Ten Commandments seem to reflect this point of view, beginning with laws that uphold the authority of the Most High. And quote, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me, saith the Most High." Exodus 20 got us in code. Allah, all praise the Most High. And then proceeding to a series of regulations that have as their sole concern the survival of the group. We're talking the survival of the genes. Be fruitful and multiply, saith the Most High. But thou shalt have no other gods with the little g before me. Let's go. And according to Genesis, we're talking the Tower of Babel was built in the plain of Shinar. Shinar is the Hebrew word for Sumer. The tower itself was intended to reach the heavens. According to Genesis, the Most High came down, or the Spirit of the Most High came down and saw that the Babylonians were doing. For that reason alone, according to Genesis, the Most High confused their languages so that they would not be able to cooperate. So the Babylonians are building the Tower of Babel in the plain of Shinar when the Spirit of the Most High comes down and confuses their languages so that they would not be able to cooperate. In either case, he seems to have been absent during most of the construction of the tower and only arrived when it seemed they were succeeding. The Most Highest power, Hua, the power of the armies of Israel, in Torah appears, issues edicts, then disappears. He reappears at moments when humanity seems on the brink of some major breakthrough and then stymies it, they say. We're just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. We're talking the power of the armies of Israel. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night, for the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of that place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. He had a dream a stairway was set on the ground and its top reached to the sky, and angels of the Most High were going up and down on it. And the Spirit of the Most High was standing beside him, and he said, I am the Most Highest of hosts, your power, the power of your father Abraham, and the power of Isaac. The ground on which you are lying I will assign to you and to your offspring. Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants. Remember, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely the Most High is present in this place, and I did not know it? Shaken, he said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the abode of the Most High, and that is the gateway to heaven. Early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. He named that site Bethel, but previously the name of the city had been Luz. Jacob then made a vow, saying, If the Most High remains with me, if he protects me on this journey that I am making, and gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safe to my father's house, the Most High shall be my power, and this stone which I have set up as a pillar shall be the Most High's abode. And of all that you give me, I will set aside a tithe for you. On its face, the story of Jacob is a mixture of Jewish history and supernatural events. Jacob was the son of Isaac and the father of Joseph. He of the coat of many colors, they say. He of the coat of many colors. We're talking Jacob, the father of Joseph. A dream interpreter to the Pharaoh of Egypt. Keep that in mind. It was Jacob who wrestled with an angel. Jacob who was renamed by the angel, Israel. One of the problems of biblical interpretation is the way in which we project backwards in time, analyzing events as if they were superstitious stories, intended for the entertainment of children or the gullible. The other approach is to take every word as the literal truth. Often, the reality may be found somewhere in between these two polar opposites. Where do you find yourself, O Jacob? As if to take every word as the literal truth. As the firstborn, Esau was destined to inherit his father's wealth. His father was Isaac, the son of Abraham, the founder of what we now call the Abrahamic religions. We're talking lost tribes and promised lands, the seed of Abraham. Isaac was nearly slain by his father. When the Most High ordered Abraham to sacrifice Isaac as a demonstration of his loyalty, at the last moment an angel stayed Abraham's hand, and the life of Isaac was spared. We're talking lost tribes and promised lands, the seed of Abraham. Esau went against his parents' wishes and married a local Canaanite woman who were idol worshippers. The implication is that Esau was also an idol worshiper. Again, against his parents' wishes, he married a local Canaanite woman who were idol worshippers. The implication is that Esau was also an idol worshiper. His mother decided that when the time came, it would be Jacob who should inherit his father's legacy, and not Esau. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, Surely the Most High is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of the Most High, Bethel. This is the gate of heaven. There is again the emphasis on reproduction. We're talking Jacob and the blessing of Rebekah. We're talking genes here. We're talking, you shall be fruitful and multiply, saith the Most High. Of the spreading of seed throughout the world from a single source that we found in the blessing of Rebekah, Jacob's mother. We're cooking, let's go. The theme of reproduction, of massive reproduction, is a constant one in Genesis. Indeed, it is from the same root that we get both words, Genesis and genetics. Let that marinate. Genesis and genetics have the same root word. But what is of equal importance is the idea that there are angels ascending and descending the stairway to heaven. So, aside from mass reproduction, take into consideration that angels were coming back and forth between this plane and the heavens, the Shamanims, the stairway to heaven. We must assume it is from the earth. The implication is of ongoing two-way traffic of these angels between the earth and the Shamanims. We're talking electrical, ethereal beings, angels, Malak, guardians of the doors of Israel. The second important concept is that of a technology, the stairway, or actually a ladder, in Hebrew, sulam, or sulam, that permits two-way traffic between the earth and the Shamayims. While we learned in the previous chapter of the sons of God, they say, we're talking about the previous video, foolish games, foolish prizes, the fallen angels, those who did not come forth at their appointed time. And they made it with the daughters of men and produced the Nephilim. And we now have a glimpse of how they landed on the earth. We're talking the ladder, the stairway from the Shamanims. Basically, what they're saying is, when we talk about Zeus and them in the previous episode, basically what they're saying is that they got here via these ladders or gateways. In the case of Jacob, there is a definite plan in mind. Their offspring will reproduce unhindered. This is a promise of the Most High Hua to Jacob, who is now assured that Hua will assist him in his every endeavor to cover the earth with his offspring. That seems to be the sum total of the Most High's interest in Jacob, they say, one involving territory and offspring. The Most High said what he said, "Be fruitful and multiply. For Jacob, your seed will cover this land, for your seed shall be as the dust of the earth." When he awakens, Jacob anoints the stone he had been sleeping on. The stones were often meteoric, they say, meteoric stones, and the name for such a stone is baetylus or baetylus. This is a Greek word that actually derives from the biblical account, for Jacob names his stone Bethel, which means house of the Most High, house of the highest power. Bethel or Bethel is the original form of baetylus. Bethel, we're talking Shan, Bethel, Shamaryahu, Bethel, we're talking about the house of the Most High. Bethel is the original form of baetylus. The account given in Genesis is as ambiguous as the story of Jacob's ladder. It again involves a supernatural being who becomes involved in Jacob's life for no immediately discernible reason. Be fruitful and multiply, for your seed shall be that of the dust of the earth. At this point in the narrative, Jacob is moving with his family and worldly possessions back to his home. He finds himself alone on one side of a river, at which point someone comes out and begins to wrestle with him. That same night he arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go, unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with beings divine and human, and have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray, tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved. The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping on his hip. That is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the socket of the hip, since Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the thigh muscle. He is described as a man repeatedly, which indicates that as far as Jacob was concerned, he was dealing with a being that was fully corporeal. In order to defeat Jacob, the man had to exert a little Vulcan on Jacob's hip, thereby dislocating it and causing Jacob to limp forever after. When Jacob leaves his home for the first time, he has his encounter with the ladder. He later identifies this man as an angel, or actually as the Most High, for the word Peniel means the face of the highest power. He claims he has seen the Most High's face to face and survived. His name is then changed to Israel, which means he strives with Hawah. So he has gone from Bethel, or house of the highest power, to Peniel, or face of the highest power. Bethel was the gate of the Shamanims. So again, there's a certain group or a certain lineage, we're talking genes or genetics, aka Genesis. There's a select few, including Enoch, who can come in the presence of the Most High. We're talking Peniel for the face of the highest power. He is then changed from Jacob to Israel, which means he who strives with the highest power. So he's gone from Bethel, or house of the highest power, to Peniel, or face of the highest power. Bethel was the gate of the Shamanims. We still do not understand the motive of the man for wrestling with Jacob. The people of Israel who were named after Jacob, in any event, it is entirely possible that from man to power is predicated on the idea that the being with whom he wrestled was an angel, one of the sons of God, they say, that we have encountered already. I will beg to differ. I will say Jacob's encounter was different. He who wrestled with an angel. The conclusion of this specific episode is vitally important, for it introduces the name and concept of Israel and reaffirms Jacob's role as the father of the tribes, even as he is going to meet his brother, whom he wronged. Jacob asks for the man/angel's name and is instead rewarded with the question, "Why do you ask my name?" Jacob then jumps to the conclusion that the man was actually the Most Highest Power himself, which, again, like when Enoch walked with the angels and the Shamanims, this had the same kind of interactions. Enoch will ask a question and the angel will reply with the question, asking, "Why do you ask these questions?" So again, we just connecting the dots, staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. We find that enough elements are present to support at least a second look from that point of view. A ladder reaching to the Shamanims, an experience of the Most High, visions of angelic forces, leading to direct contact with the divine. Another telling detail is the limp. As described elsewhere, this characteristic has a long pedigree in esoteric symbolism. A limp is associated with the shamanic Chinese practice known as the pace of you. We're talking the pace of the emperor, the emperor's pace, and the emperor's face. We're talking real deal Skywalker Ville, man. You cannot make this up. The stars of the Dipper are understood by the Taoist practitioners of the pace of you as a ladder leading from the earth to the Shamanims, and ultimately to the pole around which the entire cosmos turns. The Dipper in this instance serves as a gateway to the Shamanims. Again, I cannot make this up. We're just following the drinking gourd here, man. The dipper serves as a gateway, just as Jacob's Bethel, the house of the highest power. Again, we cannot make this up, man. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. We're talking Ezekiel in the chariot of the Most High. Let's get into it. The four living creatures. Not to be outdone, Ezekiel had a vision of the Most High descending from heaven, not down the steps of a ladder, but in his own chariot. We're talking swing low, sweet chariot. This vision inspired a mystical practice that is known as Merkava, or chariot mysticism. Merkava mysticism is also known as the descent to the chariot for reasons that are not very clear at all. Again, we're talking the emperor's pace and the emperor's face. Again, Enoch walked with the Most High. He walked through the Shamanims with the Most High and his angels. Jacob came face to face with the highest power, they say. Come on, there's a select few, man. We're talking the sons of Adam here. Real deal Skywalker veal. As mentioned above, Chinese mystics call the Big Dipper the Great Chariot, or sometimes the Golden Chariot. The Babylonians, the Dipper was known as the Great Wagon. The ancient Greeks referred to it as the Amaxa, or Chariot. The Dipper is an asterism, part of the Ursa Major constellation, and it circles around the pole star. To find it, one looks north. Again, we're just following the drinking gourd here, man. We're talking lost tribes and promised lands, the seed of Abraham. Let's cook. In the 30th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, when I was in the community of exiles by the Sheber Canal, the heavens opened and I saw visions of the highest power. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim. The word of the highest power came to the priest Ezekiel, son of Buzi, by the Sheber Canal, in the land of the Chaldeans. And the hand of the highest power came upon him there. I looked, and lo, a stormy wind came sweeping out of the north, a huge cloud and flashing fire, surrounded by radiance, and in the center of the fire, a gleam as of amber. In the center of it were also the figures of four creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the figures of human beings. However, each had four faces, and each of them had four wings, the legs of which were fused into a single rigid leg, and the feet of each were like a single calf's hoof, and their sparkle was like the luster of burnished bronze. They had human hands below their wings. The four of them had their faces and their wings on their four sides. Each one's wings touched those of the other. They did not turn when they moved. Each could move in the direction of any of its faces. Each of them had a human face. Each of the four had the face of a lion on the right. Each of the four had the face of an ox on the left. And each of the four had the face of an eagle at the back. Such were their faces. As for their wings, they were separated. Above, each had two touching those of the others, while the other two covered its body, and each could move in the direction of any of its faces. They went wherever the Spirit impelled them to go, without turning when they moved. So then was the appearance of the creatures. With them was something looked like burning coals of fire. This fire, suggestive of torches, kept moving about among the creatures. The fire had a radiance, and lightning issued from the fire. Dashing to and fro, the creatures was something that looked like flares. As I gazed on the creatures, I saw one wheel on the ground next to each of the four-faced creatures. As for the appearance and structure of the wheels, they gleamed like beryl. All four had the same form. The appearance and structure of each was as of two wheels cutting through each other. And when they moved, each could move in the direction of any of its four quarters. They did not veer when they moved. Their rims were tall and frightening, for the rims of all four were covered all over with eyes. And when the creatures moved forward, the wheels moved at their sides. And when the creatures were born above the earth, the wheels were born too. Wherever the Spirit impelled them to go, they went, wherever the Spirit impelled them. and the wheels were borne alongside them, for the spirit of the creatures was in the wheels. When those moved, these moved, and when those stood still, these stood still. And when those were born above the earth, the wheels were born alongside them, for the spirit of the creatures was in the wheels. Above the heads of the creatures was a form, an expanse, with an awe-inspiring gleam as of crystal, was spread out above their heads. Under the expanse, each had one pair of wings extended toward those of the others, and each had another pair covering its body. When they moved, I could hear the sound of their wings like the sound of mighty waters, like the sound of Shaddai, a tumult like the din of an army. When they stood still, they would let their wings droop. From above the expanse over their heads came a sound. When they stood still, they would let their wings droop. Above the expanse over their heads was the semblance of a throne, in appearance like sapphire, and on top, upon this semblance of a throne, there was the semblance of a human form. From what appeared as his loins up, I saw a gleam as of amber, what looked like a fire encased in a frame. And from what appeared as his loins down, I saw what looked like fire. There was a radiance all about him. Like the appearance of the bow which shines in the clouds on a day of rain, such was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. That was the appearance of the semblance of the presence of the highest power. When I beheld it, I flung myself down on my face, and I heard the voice of someone speaking. The vision, as we shall see, is eventually described as a chariot. That it was seen in the north may be a further indication that Ezekiel is referencing the Dipper. The four living creatures, along with their wheels within the wheels, can be said to represent the four stars of the Dipper that were commonly used to represent the rectangular body of the chariot. We're just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. Ezekiel got the drop, eventually described as a chariot. Ezekiel's visions begins as noted above with the appearance of a kind of vehicle. He does not use the word chariot or Merkava until much later. According to Ezekiel, the faces on the four sides of the body of the vehicle face in the direction of travel. These four beings are referred to as the Haya, or living creatures, below the four beings with the four wings and the four faces. And they can be seen in the wheels, or the Ophanim. They are described as a wheel inside of a wheel, the outside or perimeter of the vehicle. Sitting on a throne made of sapphire in the vehicle is the likeness of a man. He seems to be the one who controls the vehicle. That is, he is sitting and is relevant for the Haya do not sit. They are specifically described as having legs that are straight. The implication is that they do not bend at the knee. Come on, let's cook. This may refer to a tradition that angels do not have knee joints. Their legs are always straight. They are always standing at the ready. Let's go. Later in works of the Merkava mystics, we're talking about the prophet Enoch, aka Metatron, sometimes identified with the prophet Enoch, aka Metatron. He sits on a throne before the inner sanctum where the highest power is to be found. Again, there's only a certain few that can dwell in the presence of the Most High. Enoch sits on a throne before the inner sanctum where the highest power is to be found. The fact that he is sitting causes some mystics to mistake him for the highest power. So again, since angels cannot sit, at least not in the presence of the Most High. So again, we're just connecting the dots, man. The prophet Enoch, aka Metatron, is one of the few, if only, who sits in the presence of the Most High. For the angels stay at attention. They ready to pop off at any moment. Let's go. First and foremost, the chariot as seen by Ezekiel, and which appears again to carry the prophet Elijah to heaven, is a vehicle. It is in all of these cases a flying object. So again, we're just following the drinking gourd, they say. It implies transportation, but of a celestial character. The chariot is a device for traveling to heaven. When the highest power was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha had set out from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the highest power has sent me on to Bethel. As the Most High lives and as you live," said Elisha, "I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. Disciples of the prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the highest power will take your master away from you today?" He replied, "I know it too. Be silent." Then Elijah said to him, "Elisha, stay here, for the highest power has sent me on to Jericho." "As the Most High lives and as you live," said Elisha, "I will not leave you." So they went on to Jericho. The disciples of the prophets who were at Jericho came over to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the highest power will take your master away from you today?" He replied, "I know it too. Be silent." Elijah said to him, "Stay here, for the Most High has sent me on to the Jordan. As the highest power lives, and as you live, I will not leave you," he said. And the two of them went on. 50 men of the disciples of the prophets followed and stood by at a distance from them as the two of them stopped at the Jordan. Thereupon Elijah took his mantle, and rolling it up, he struck the water. It divided to the right and the left, so that the two of them crossed over on dry land. As they were crossing, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" Elisha answered, "Let a double portion of your spirit pass on to me." "You have asked a difficult thing," he said. "If you see me as I am being taken from you, this will be granted to you. If not, it will not." As they kept on walking and talking, a fiery chariot with fiery horses suddenly appeared and separated one from the other, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw it, and he cried out, "Oh, Father, Father, Israel's chariots and horsemen!" When he could no longer see him, he grasped his garments and rent them in two. He picked up Elijah's mantle, which had dropped from him, and he went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. Taking the mantle which he had dropped from Elijah, he struck the water and said, "Where is the highest power, the power of Elijah?" As he too struck the water, it parted to the right and to the left, and Elisha crossed over. When the disciples of the prophets at Jericho saw him from a distance, they exclaimed, "The spirit of Elijah has settled on Elisha." And they went to meet him and bowed low before him to the ground. The Aztecs were not the earliest civilization in Mexico. That honor probably goes to the Olmecs, the culture that gave us those enormous heads carved out of stone. The Olmec culture began sometime in the mid-second millennium, they say, and thus flourished during the time of the Egyptian New Kingdom dynasties. Let's run that back, y'all. The Olmec culture began sometime in the mid-second millennium, and thus flourished during the time of the Egyptian New Kingdom dynasties. We're just connecting the dots here. The Olmecs and the Egyptians. According to these authors and scientists, these two civilizations coexisted at the same time frame. Come on, man. Cannot make this up. Meditate on that. Like the Egyptians, the Olmec built pyramids, such as the Great Pyramid at Levinta in the state of Tabasco. So, like the Egyptians, Olmecs also built pyramids, such as the Great Pyramid. Some of these pyramids that they find in South America or Middle America or Mexico are larger than some of the pyramids over there. They just tell you that they coincided in existence, pretty much putting them side by side. You let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. The Levinta Pyramid still stands more than 100 feet above the earth, and at least in one distance. The intermediary between the Olmec and the Aztec were the Toltecs. The Toltec per se were not a separate culture, but a legendary ancestor of the Aztec from a time before they were forced to leave their sacred homeland. The Aztec used the word Toltecatl to refer to culture itself. So we're talking Toltecs, Olmecs, and Aztecs. The word Toltecatl meaning culture itself, man. We are the Toltecatl. We are the culture, O Jacob. The origins of the people we call Aztec are as mysterious as those of other ancient people. The word Aztec refers to the legendary ancestral homeland of the Mexica, Aztlan. It is believed that the Mexica migrated to the area around what is today Mexico City, and that pretty much a supernova or so-called star explosion happened, which caused them to migrate. Some historians believe that the explosion of the supernova was the cause of the migration. So again, we're talking exploding stars, we're talking Olmecs, we're talking Toltecs, we're talking Enoch, We're talking Jacob. We're talking Elijah. We're talking that select few individuals who can dwell in the presence of the Most High. The people who became known as the Aztecs due to a misunderstanding of the Nahuatl language were comprised of several ethnicities that all spoke Nahuatl. They claimed their origin in a place called Aztlan, which was an island in the middle of a body of water, probably a lake. The Lake of the Moon, they say. In the middle of the island was a pyramid. Again, we're talking Olmecs, we're talking Toltecs, we're talking Aztecs. Basically talking Egyptians too at this point. In the middle of the island was a pyramid. The association of an island with a hill or mountain in the center, represented by the pyramid, and a tree in the center of that, is a motif we found in other parts of the world. They left Aztlan and migrated to a place known as Chicomostok, the place of the 7 caves. Each of these 7 caves was the home of one of the 7 ethnic groups. Again, we're talking 7 caves, we're talking 7 stars of the Dipper here. Let's cook. Possibly being associated with the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. Chicomostok is unique among the places visited by the Aztecs in their migrations, for it is always depicted as being underground, but we're talking as above, so below. There is thus an underworld association with this place of 7 caves, which may also have an astronomical reference. Again, we're just following the drinking gourd here. The Toltec image of Chicomostok. The 7 caves or 7 hills is common to many ancient peoples and may refer to a celestial origin. We're talking Toltecs, we're talking Olmecs, we're talking Egyptians. The Egyptians connected their ancestral home to the 7 stars of the Big Dipper as well, and there were similar ideas among the ancient people of India and China. We're talking Abrahamic religions, we're talking lost tribes and promised lands, the seed of Abraham. The Mexica were forbidden by their god with the little g to call themselves Azteca. The reason is obscure, but may have been due to a desire to conceal the true nature of their origins and the location of their sacred homeland. Instead, they were forced to call themselves Mexica and to leave Aztlan forever. First, a figure that appears to be an Aztec priest arrives by canoe at Cualcan. We're talking an Aztec priest that arrives by canoe at Cojualcan, the place of the ancestors. It is within a cave in this mountain that the head of the god with the little g is seen suspended over an altar emerging from a hummingbird nest. Cojualcan was also considered the birthplace of the god with the little g himself. It would seem that the priest received the instructions to leave Aztlan from this god with the little g at the same time. So this god with the little g is subordinate, yes, giving out commands to the Toltec or the so-called Aztec priests in the place of the ancestors. Come on now, we're just connecting the dots here. Ezekiel's vision took place in the 6th century, about the time of the fall of the Olmecs. Again, I cannot make this up. We got the prophets, specifically Ezekiel, saying that they coincided in the time of the Olmecs, which also coincided with the time of the Egyptians. Ezekiel's prophecy, we're talking the fiery chariot, we're talking the Olmecs, we're talking the Toltecs. Let's cook. He is recording a charge that child sacrifice as well as temple prostitution and other religious crimes were taking place in Jerusalem at the same time of the conquest of the city by the Babylonians. So again, we got Ezekiel, we got the Olmecs, we got the Toltecs, we got the Aztecs, and we got the Egyptians. You tell me who is who. We're just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. I cannot make this up. We're talking Ezekiel's vision. The La Venta Pyramid in the state of Tabasco, which was built by the Olmecs, stands more than 100 feet above the earth. More and more of these pyramids are being discovered every year thanks to satellite imaging technology. So again, everything you need to know, oh Jacob, is right here on your land, right up under your feet and above your head. We have already discussed the stairway to heaven and the practice of Merkava mysticism. We're talking Jacob in Bethel, the house of the highest power. We're talking Peniel, face of the highest power. We have already discussed the stairway to heaven. We're talking Ezekiel in the fiery chariot. But while the Jewish and Babylonian systems were detailed and specific in concept, nothing really compares to the Egyptian sources, such as the pyramid text and the coffin text and the famous book of Going Forth by Day. But we know the Egyptians got they drop from them brews, man. So really, we're just circling back to the beginning, man. We're not talking genetics. We're talking genes. We're talking Genesis here. A select few, the sons of Adam. Asian architectural forms often represent beliefs surrounding celestial associations such as feng shui in China and Vastu in India. It has been shown that ancient Western monuments such as Stonehenge in England, as well as some of the earthen monuments left behind by the mound builder culture in North America, are also celestially oriented or aligned. Again, you got to go back to Big Trouble in Little Egypt to get the drop on Stonehenge and the mound builders. That's the one. His findings reveal that many of the Hopewell sites are aligned to points of solar and lunar significance, and that burials were often oriented to the moon. Unfortunately, they say, the mound builder culture did not leave behind any written records. I feel like that's so convenient that out of all the cultures that they cannot find any written records of the mound builders, but they can find everything else. Come on, man. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. And all that remains are the mounds themselves and whatever objects and artifacts have been discovered or buried within them. Again, if we go back to the previous drop, got it out the mound. Are the mound builders descendants of Abraham? The mounds were robbed and looted over and over and over and over again. So no, there's not any written records, but the remains are destroyed and the objects have been stolen. Come on, keep it a buck. And they are startlingly consistent in their attention to astronomical alignments. Again, who knows the stars better than them brews, man? That select few. We're talking Ezekiel, we're talking Enoch, we're talking Elijah, we're talking Jacob. The list goes on, such as the famous Serpent Mound in southern Ohio. It is sobering to realize that most Americans are totally unaware of the remains of these ancient cultures right beneath their feet. Come on, y'all. Right beneath their feet. The Serpent Mound in Chillicothe, Ohio, an ancient earthwork that depicts a serpent swallowing a pearl or a sphere. It is over 2,000 years old, they say, and the largest serpent effigy in the world. Among the Egyptians, this process involved a priestly hierarchy caring for the dead pharaoh and assisting in his ascent to the immortal sky. Among the Chinese, this process became more articulated. So the Egyptians, the only way to travel is after you're dead. For the Chinese, they say, came up with the way for you to travel to the stars while you were alive. As we can see, the Brews, aka the seed of Abraham, could do it as well. But not only could they travel, but they could dwell amongst the Most High, in His presence, seated. Come on now. So that an individual, while alive, could proceed along the same path as the pharaoh who had to die before crossing. Let me know what you think, man. It's deep. There was an actual diagram of the 7 stars of the Dipper embroidered on a carpet or in some other fashion. The pace was named after the great Yu, the divine king of Chinese legend, after a shooting star in the constellation Orion. So again, they say the divine king, whose mother conceived him after seeing a shooting star. Come on now, we're talking Tecumseh here, Tecumseh, the crouching panther, whose mother also saw a shooting star and conceived him, his name literally meaning shooting star. So again, man, go back and watch some of the older videos, man. We're just connecting the dots here. We have an association between the Big Dipper and Orion, where we have only scant information from the Egyptian texts on the importance of the Dipper, especially in the opening of the mouth ceremony. The Dipper was connected to water and the origin of life. Treading the Dipper is the equivalent of the Egyptian voyage through the underworld. Again, talking the sky river to the underworld, Eridanus. You gotta go back. You gotta go back and watch the video, man. You gotta watch Foolish Games, Foolish Prizes. Really brings some clarity to this one, as well as some of the more recent ones as well. So the Dipper is equivalent of the Egyptian voyage through the underworld, with the exception that it takes place deliberately by living persons, man. We're talking the prophet Ezekiel. The Dipper is the carriage of the emperor. There are various approaches to pacing the void, but they all involve a focus on the stars of the Big Dipper and then experiencing the Dipper. So something with this Big Dipper, basically they're saying, is the ladder that Jacob took, and they're also saying it was the chariot that Ezekiel took. So considering our ancestors had a connection to this Dipper, pretty much goes to show you that if you know, you know. These and many other versions are all concerned with treading or pacing on each individual star of the Dipper, a human being ascending into space from Earth and passing through the 7 or 9 gates that guard the entrance to the pole star, the source of immortality. But again, you're not just pacing the void, you're not just skywalking if you're not connected to the divine or the Most High, because you got guardians of these gates. We're talking Malachim, we're talking Ophanim, we're talking Seraphim. Let's get it. We got another view of the Serpent Mound and a connection to the Chinese flag of the Qing Dynasty. Again, go back and watch the videos. We connect China to the Americas and South America. We connect the dragons. We connect the motifs. We connect the land. Man, let's go. Talking dragons in America. These dark stars are silent, but their presence is essential. A celestial network along which the adept passes on the way to the pole star. These dark stars are not the same as the 2 invisible companions of the Dipper, which round out the total number of stars. The 7 or 9 dark stars, however, are both invisible and intangible. They can be sensed and seen by the adept. So again, when you're skywalking here, there are certain stars that can't be seen in the visible sky. Again, if we connect it to our previous video, there are certain stars that are trapped or imprisoned because they didn't come forth at their appointed time. So when traveling the Dipper, you might come across these stars, these dark stars like Enoch, and wonder what the hell is going on, only to come to find out they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They didn't follow the Most High's command. One of the major influences was the Book of Enoch, and it's associated with the Book of Giants. The Book of Giants is especially interesting as it is based on the story of the Nephilim, and the term found in the biblical book of Genesis is relation to the story of the Great Flood. Such a clear parallel to the biblical account in Genesis seems to justify the interpretation of Nephilim as giants, scholars claiming that the association of the Greek word gigas with our understanding of giant. It was believed that gigas meant one born of earth, as the giants were the offspring of Gaia, the earth, they say. The actual meaning of gigantes and gigas is as obscure as the actual meaning of the word Nephilim, 2 words in different languages that mean the same thing. This may be further evidence that whatever was represented by these terms was a real being whose actual name was interpreted, or at least translated, by the Jews and the Greeks based on their own contact with them, or based on a common source at some point in prehistory, they say. Also mentioning the sons of God, or the sons of our power, aka the Nephilim, but were really just fallen angels, were engaging in intercourse with human women and also with animals, and that in the process they begat giants and monsters. We're gonna get into it in the next videos. Let's go. And such as the animal-headed gods with the little g of Egypt, or the Apkula of Mesopotamia. So again, man, the genes got jacked up, man. We're talking geneticists. We're talking genetics. We're talking Genesis. Adam was created from mud and dust, and was thus the prototype of the golems to follow. The difference was that Adam was created by the highest power, whereas the golems of Jewish tradition were created by human beings, and they did not have the divine spark that was present in Adam. Come on, we're talking divine spark. We're talking the sons of Adam here. These golems took orders and carried them out, but they were incapable of independent thought. Thus, the golem was the prototype of the robot and the computer.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth and carrying me home.